My sister wrongly blamed me for swiping her engagement ring, and my folks threw me out. Fast forward 3 years. They found the ring stuck in the garbage disposal. I never thought I'd be sharing this kind of story. But here we are. I'm Elliot, 26. 3 years back, a bogus accusation from my older sis, Gemma, 29, turned my world on its head. We were raised in a small Ohio town, me, my parents, John, 55, and Lisa, 53, and Gemma. Our place was a simple 2-story house, nothing grand, but it was our home, bought by my parents when they got hitched. Dad taught math at the high school, and Mom was a nurse at the nearby hospital. They weren't rolling in dough, but we always had what we needed. Gemma and I were tight growing up. We'd mess around in the backyard for hours, climbing our old oak and dreaming up crazy games. She was the boss, always calling the shots and coming up with storylines, and I was cool just tagging along. But as we got older, stuff started to change. Gemma was a real go-getter, always acing everything, leading the debate team, and just killing it in whatever she did. Me, I was more chill. I did all right in school, but I wasn't as driven as Gemma. This difference started messing with our vibe as we hit our teens. By the time Gemma headed off to college, we'd drifted. She got a scholarship to a fancy university, while I stuck around and went to community college. I was clueless about my future, so I just took a bunch of random classes, hoping something would click. Gemma moved to the city after college, landing a gig at a big-shot marketing firm. She'd come back for holidays and some weekends, full of tales about her awesome life and cool job. I couldn't help feeling like a loser in comparison. I was still crashing at home, working part-time at the local grocery store, trying to figure out my life. Even with our differences, I figured Gemma and I were good. We weren't as close as before, but I thought that was just life. I had no clue how fast things could go south. 3 years ago, Gemma got engaged to her boyfriend, Tom, 31. They'd been together for 2 years, and everyone was thrilled. Tom was a lawyer from a loaded family, and my folks adored him. He proposed with this insane diamond ring that had been in his family forever. Gemma was over the moon, showing it off to anyone who'd look. The engagement bash was huge. My parents invited what felt like the whole town to our place. I felt out of place with all the fancy folks Gemma and Tom knew from the city. I hung out with my old high school buddies who were still around, feeling way more comfortable with them. A month after the engagement, everything went nuts. It was a Tuesday afternoon and I was off work. I was chilling in my room, playing games, enjoying the quiet. Gemma was staying for a week, taking time off to start wedding planning with Mom. I heard Gemma and Mom come back from shopping, chatting and laughing downstairs. I didn't pay it much mind and went back to my game. About an hour later, Gemma screamed. I bolted downstairs to see what was up, and she accused me of jacking her engagement ring. She said she took it off to wash dishes, leaving it on the counter. When she went back for it, it was gone. I was floored and denied taking it, but Gemma wouldn't hear it. She kept yelling that I was the only one home, so it had to be me. She ranted about how I was jealous of her and probably wanted to pawn the ring to get my life together. Our parents got home during this mess, and Gemma told them her side. To my shock, they totally bought it. Mom started bawling, asking how I could do this to my sister. Dad just stared at me, looking super disappointed. They tore apart my room, searching everywhere. They didn't find the ring, but they found some cash I'd saved from my supermarket job. It wasn't a ton, maybe a few $100, but Gemma jumped on it, claiming I must have sold the ring. I tried explaining I'd been saving for months, thinking about taking some community college classes, but nobody listened. The next few days were hell. My parents and Gemma kept pushing me to confess and give back the ring. They threatened to call the cops if I didn't fess up. I was scared and felt totally alone. No one in my family believed me, and I was treated like a crook in my own house. I tried hitting up some friends, but most had moved away after high school. The few who stayed in town didn't want to get mixed up in family drama. I felt more isolated than ever. After a week of constant accusations and threats, my parents decided to change my life. They told me I had to leave. They said they couldn't trust me and that I was a disgrace to the family. They gave me 2 days to pack my stuff and get out. I was crushed. I had nowhere to go and no clue what to do. My best bud from high school, Ryan, 26, who was back in town after being in the army, offered his couch. But I knew I couldn't crash there forever. His place was tiny, and he was still getting his life together. I crammed everything I could into a backpack and an old duffel bag, clothes, books, my laptop, and some mementos. As I left, I saw Gemma watching me from her window. I thought I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes, but she quickly looked away. Leaving that house, the only one I'd ever known, was the toughest thing I'd ever done. I felt betrayed and abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me no matter what. The worst part was I hadn't done anything. For the next 2 months, I bounced between Ryan's couch and cheap motels. I took any odd jobs I could find, dishwashing, dog walking, even a construction gig for a few weeks. It was rough, but I was determined to prove I was innocent and make it on my own. Eventually, I landed a steady job at a warehouse outside of town. The work was tough, the hours long, but the pay was reliable. It wasn't amazing, but it let me rent a small room in a shared house with some other warehouse guys. Slowly, I started piecing my life back together, but the pain of what happened never faded. I'd lie awake at night replaying everything, wondering how it all went so wrong. How could my family turn on me so fast? How could Gemma, who'd grown up with me, believe I'd do something like that? I cut off all contact with my family. They tried reaching out a few times at first. Mom would leave sad voicemails, begging me to come home and fix things. Dad sent a few short texts saying we needed to talk. Gemma even showed up at the warehouse once, but I refused to see her. I couldn't face them after what they'd done. They weren't my family anymore. For 3 years this was my life. I made new friends at work and in my shared house. We'd hang out after shifts, grab beers and watch games. It wasn't the life I'd pictured, but it was mine and I'd built it from nothing. I worked hard and even got promoted to shift supervisor. I started taking online classes in business management. I was slowly figuring out what I wanted, but there was always a part of me that was angry and hurt. I missed my old life and my family, but I couldn't forgive them for not trusting me. Holidays were tough. Seeing families shopping or hearing Christmas music made me feel a pang of sadness for what I'd lost. Then last week I got a surprise email from Dad. The subject was just, "We need to talk." The message was short, saying they had to meet with me ASAP, and it was about the ring. At first, I wanted to ignore it like I had with their other attempts to reach out. But something made me pause. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe a tiny part of me still wanted closure. After debating for hours, I decided to hear them out. I called Dad, and what he told me blew my mind. The ring had been found. Gemma had accidentally knocked it into the garbage disposal while washing dishes. She only realized it a few days ago, when the disposal started making weird noises, and they called a plumber. Dad said Gemma was a wreck when she realized what had happened and that I'd been telling the truth. He said they all felt terrible about what they'd done and wanted to make things right. I hung up, feeling a mix of emotions. On one hand, I felt validated. I'd always told the truth, and now everyone knew it. But I was pissed. I was furious that it took 3 years to find out the truth, that I'd lost so much time with my family, and that I'd struggled alone when I hadn't done a damn thing. Now I'm at a crossroads. My family wants me back. They say they want to fix things. Gemma's been blowing up my phone, begging for forgiveness. But I'm not sure I can forgive them. They kicked me out without a second thought, assumed the worst, and left me to fend for myself for 3 freaking years. Part of me wants to tell them to go to hell and deal with the shame. But another part of me misses my old life and wonders if we can rebuild what we lost. Torn. Should I give them a chance, or should I keep living the life I've made without them? I could really use some outside perspective. Date 1. It's been a week since my last update, and a lot's happened. I want to thank everyone for their advice. It really helped me sort through my feelings. After a ton of thinking, I decided to meet with my family. I figured I owed it to myself to confront them, even if I wasn't sure about getting back together. We met at a neutral spot, a small coffee shop in our hometown, where we wouldn't bump into anyone we knew, but still easy for everyone to get to. I was super nervous. I hadn't seen my family in 3 years. I arrived early and picked a corner table for some privacy. When they walked in, it was like a punch to the gut. Seeing them after all this time was intense. Mom burst into tears. She looked older, with more gray hair and lines around her eyes. Dad looked worn out. His shoulders slumped like he was carrying a huge burden. Gemma couldn't even look me in the eye at first. She seemed smaller and less sure of herself than the sister I remembered. We sat down, and for a while nobody knew what to say. Then they all started talking at once, apologies pouring out. My parents admitted they'd screwed up as parents by not trusting me. They said they'd regretted it every day since, but pride and embarrassment had stopped them from reaching out sooner. Dad, who's usually a man of few words, talked for ages about how he'd replayed those days, trying to figure out how he could have been so blind. He said he'd always prided himself on being fair, but that his emotions had clouded his judgment. Mom, through tears, told me she'd kept my room exactly as I'd left it, hoping I'd come back. She said she'd wake up at night, thinking she heard me, only to realize what had happened. Gemma broke down, saying she'd never forgive herself. She mentioned how she'd always looked up to me, even though I was younger. She admitted she'd been so wrapped up in her own life that she'd lost sight of what was important. As they talked, memories of our childhood came flooding back. I remembered how Gemma stood up for me when I was bullied. I thought about all the times we'd laughed, shared secrets, and supported each other. It made the betrayal hurt even more, but it also reminded me of the good times. I listened to everything, but I couldn't forgive them yet. The hurt and resentment were still too raw. I told them I needed time. They seemed to understand and didn't push. Mom wanted to hug me before we left, but I backed away. I wasn't ready for that. The hurt look on her face almost made me change my mind, but I stayed strong. I needed to protect myself. After the meeting, I went back to my apartment and thought hard about what I wanted. Did I want my old life back? Could I ever trust them again? Was it worth trying to fix things? I realized that while I missed having a family, I'd also grown a lot. I'd become independent, strong, and had built a life for myself. I wasn't the same person they'd kicked out. I thought about my warehouse job, my online classes, and the friends I'd made. I'd worked hard to get where I was, and I was proud of what I'd accomplished. The thought of giving that up and going back felt wrong. At the same time, I couldn't deny that seeing my family had stirred up a lot of feelings. Despite everything, I still loved and missed them. I wondered if I could have a relationship with them while still keeping my independence. After a few days, I made a decision. I called my parents and explained that while I appreciated their apology, I wasn't ready to fully reconcile. I told them I needed more time and space. I also set some boundaries. I said I was willing to have limited contact, but I wasn't moving back home or pretending nothing had happened. I told them that if we were going to have a relationship, it had to be on my terms. They were disappointed but said they understood. They promised to respect my boundaries. Mom asked if she could call me once a week to check in, and I agreed, thinking it would be a good way to slowly rebuild trust. As for Gemma, I've decided to keep my distance for now. Her actions had hurt me the most, and I wasn't ready to forgive her. I told her I needed more time before I could consider having a relationship with her again. She was upset but said she understood. It's been a tough week, with a lot of emotional ups and downs. I've had moments where I questioned my decision, wondering if I'm being too harsh. But then I remember how quickly they turned on me, and I know I'm doing the right thing by taking it slow. I've also started looking into therapy. Many of you suggested it, and I think it would be helpful to have a professional to talk to. I've never been to therapy before, so I'm a little nervous, but I think it could be good for me. For now, my focus is on my job and studies. I have a big project coming up at work, and I don't want this family drama to distract me. I'm also thinking about moving to a better apartment. I've been saving, and I think I'm ready for a place of my own. Thank you again for your support. It's comforting to know there are people who understand and care. I'll provide an update if anything major changes. Day 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I wanted to share some progress. I've been sticking to the boundaries I set with my family. We've had a few calls and texts, but nothing too intense. It's been okay, awkward at times, but not as painful as I expected. My parents have mostly respected my wishes. They check in, but they don't ask for more than I'm willing to give. I can tell they're trying to rebuild trust, but it's a slow process. Mom calls once a week like we agreed. The calls were strained at first, but they're getting easier. We usually talk about neutral stuff like her work, the weather, and my online classes. It's not much, but it's a start. Dad's been sending me short emails, just to check in or share something he thinks I'd be interested in. Last week, he forwarded me an article about a new business opening in our hometown. It was a small gesture, but it reminded me of how he used to clip newspaper articles for me when I was younger. Gemma's been struggling with the distance I've put between us. She sent me a lot of long, emotional texts, apologizing and begging for a chance to make things right. I've responded simply, saying I need more time. It's hard, but I'm holding firm. I know she's hurting, but I'm not ready to deal with her feelings on top of my own. The big news is that I've started therapy. I found a counselor who specializes in family trauma, and we've had a few sessions. It's been tough bringing up all the pain from the past, but I think it's helping. My therapist is helping me work through my anger and trust issues, and giving me tools for setting healthy boundaries. In our last session, we talked about how the ring incident was about more than just the accusation. It was also about years of feeling like I didn't measure up to Gemma's achievements. It's made me realize there were problems in our family dynamic long before the ring, and that healing will require addressing those too. One unexpected result of all this is that I've gotten closer to my friends, especially Ryan. They've been super supportive. Ryan even offered to come with me to any future family meetings for moral support. It's taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who has your back when things get tough. Work has been a welcome distraction. I've thrown myself into my job and even got a small promotion. I'm now in charge of inventory management for my shift, which means more responsibility and a little pay bump. It's nice to have something positive to focus on. As for my living situation, I've decided to stay put for now. It's not much, but it's mine, and it represents the independence I've worked so hard for. My parents offered to help me find a better place, but I turned them down. I need to do this on my own. However, I've started seriously looking at options for furthering my education. There's a state university about an hour away that offers night classes. I'm thinking about applying to their business program. It would be a big step, but I think I'm ready for it. Overall, I'm taking things one day at a time. Some days are harder than others. There are times when I long for the easy connection we used to have as a family, but then I remember how quickly they turned on me, and I know I can't rush this. My therapist says it's okay to have mixed feelings. She encourages me to be patient with myself and not feel pressured to forgive before I'm ready. We're working on strategies for dealing with upcoming family gatherings and holidays, which are making me more anxious than I'd like to admit. For now, my priorities are healing and building a life I can be proud of, with or without my family. It's not easy, but I'm feeling optimistic about the future. I'm learning that it's okay to put myself first, and that setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad person. Thanks for your continued support. Your comments and messages have given me strength. It's comforting to know I'm not alone in dealing with family stuff like this. Day 3. It's been 6 months since my original post, so I figured it was time for a final update. A lot has changed in the past few months. The biggest news is that I've decided to move to a different state for a new job opportunity. It's a significant step up in my career, and I'm excited about the new challenges. The job is with a logistics company, and the work is similar to what I was doing at the warehouse but on a much larger scale. It's a management role which I've been working towards. The salary is significantly higher, and it comes with benefits like health insurance and a 401k. Before making this decision, I had a long talk with my therapist. We discussed how this move would impact my healing and my relationship with my family. Ultimately, we agreed that this could be a really good thing for me, a chance to truly stand on my own 2 feet and define myself outside of the family drama. I told my parents about the move last week. They were surprised and disappointed, but they said they understood. My mother cried a little, saying she'd hoped we'd have more time to rebuild our relationship before I left. My father was more stoic, but I could see he was disappointed too. They were both worried about me being alone in a new place, but I reassured them that I'd be okay. Gemma took it the hardest. After I told her, she showed up unannounced at my apartment, begging me not to go. She said she felt like she was losing me all over again. It was a difficult conversation, but I held my ground. I told her that this was something I needed to do for myself, and that our relationship wasn't in a place where her opinion could sway my decision. Our relationship is improving, but it's not perfect. We've had a few family dinners in recent months. They've been awkward at times, but we're slowly learning to be around each other again. Trust is still a major issue. I sometimes question their motives, wondering if they're being genuine or just trying to ease their guilt. My therapist has been crucial during this. She's helped me process my emotions and set boundaries. She's emphasized that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the trauma never happened. It's about letting go of the anger so I can find peace. I've taken that to heart. While I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, I'm trying to forgive my family. Not for their sake, but for mine. It was exhausting carrying around all that anger and resentment, and I'm ready to let it go. As I prepare for this move, I've been reflecting on everything. 3 years ago I thought my life was over. I'd lost everything, including everyone I cared about. But now I see how much I've grown from that experience. I'm stronger, more independent, and have a better sense of my own worth than I ever did before. I don't know what the future holds for me and my family. We plan to stay in touch after I move, with weekly phone calls and visits during the holidays. It's a start. Maybe, with time and distance, we can build something new. For now, my focus is on the future. I'm excited about my new job, the new city, and the possibilities that await me. I've started looking for apartments online and researching the area where I'll be living. It's a mix of excitement and nerves, but I'm mostly looking forward to this next chapter. Whatever happens with my family, I know I'll be okay. I've proven to myself that I can handle whatever life throws at me, and I've learned the importance of surrounding myself with people who believe in me and support me, whether they're related by blood or not. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories.